Hello! I bet you didn't expect to see me again. So, like I said in my previous video discussing a community, this really isn't my style. I don't make videos. I'm a writer. I like to I prefer the medium of text to videos. And I don't mean that like with I'm holding a glass of Chardonnay and the book was better than the movie. That's not what I'm talking about. It's just for me personally, I find in terms of fiction or telling a story of fiction, I prefer text to video or that sort of thing. But a lot of people really gave me very positive comments on my previous video. That's about a whole thing that I don't think anybody really wants to talk about anymore. I think we've had enough of that controversy to last us a lifetime. I think we just want to move on, everybody. So a lot of people gave me really good comments and positive reinforcement and said they'd like to see more of this sort of thing. So I figured I'd give it a shot. I do one thing, and sort of just like a chit chat, a conversation to go over some of the minor topics in Bloodborne's lore that a lot of people don't really go into. A lot of people, myself included, love to talk about the really important things, the really important characters, the really important stuff, but there's a lot of small details that get sort of pushed aside. When I wrote The Pale Blood Hunt, for example, trust me, it could have been 200, 300 pages long. And you're welcome. It wasn't, because I wanted to narrow it down to the important things, but there's a lot of stuff that gets caught in the wayside. Hello, Calvin. That's my cat. I apologize for how fucking loud he is. And, so I figured I would make this video to just sort of talk about one of my particular favorite small things. He'll quiet down eventually. Small things in Bloodborne's lore, and that is the coffins, because there are coffins everywhere in Yharnam. Now, just like my last video, I don't have a script. I do have my incredible Future Press guide, written by Marcus Ian B., Franz, a German spy, and everyone else at Future Press. I have that just in case I want to look up like an item description or something like that, just for some reference. But I want to talk about the coffins in Yharnam, which are everywhere, along the streets. And you could say, well, they're just in there because they look spooky, They're just in there because it's creepy and it adds atmosphere. But, I mean, there's something more to it. So let's start from the beginning, which is when you first wake up in Yharnam, and you go around and you're running around in central Yharnam and you're fighting the first few enemies. You can turn a corner in the beginning of central Yharnam, and you can meet an executioner. The executioners, if you're not familiar with their official names, are the really big, bulky guys with the axe, and they have the hooded armor and that sort of thing. And you can run into him in pretty much the very first level of the game. And, if you're like me and you were used to the Souls games, you figured this would be something like a Red-Eye Knight, what I mean? Which is like an enemy that you're obviously not supposed to fight yet. It's actually not. It's perfectly manageable even at level 4 and all that sort of thing. But it's an interesting place because, first of all, this character is surrounded by this enemy is surrounded by all of these coffins, and it kind of makes you think about what's going on here. So the coffins were something I didn't really think about for a long time until the Future Press guide came out and revealed just a little bit more information on them. Not much, but it gave us a clue. So for starters, where are the coffins ending up? Because we see where they're starting. It looks like people are just leaving them outside of their house. It looks like people are just taking their dead and stacking them up in the streets to be picked up. And that's very interesting. Now, where are the coffins ending up? They're ending up in Yahar'gul. Yahar'gul is the city located on the outskirts of Yharnam, where the School of Mensis operates. And it's one of the biggest laboratories for the Healing Church, essentially. It's where, Mikolash and his students do all their research. And we know that that's where the Caskets are going because Thanks to the Future Press Guide, we know that those monsters that you can fight in Yharnam, after the blood moon has risen, where they look like a bunch of body parts sort of crawling out of like a box, and they can shoot those bloody arrows at you, or they can like jump at you and that sort of thing, and it looks like just like a bunch of goo, a bunch of like skulls and goo and that sort of thing. We know that their official name is Cramped Casket. And that is what really sort of set all these wheels into motion for me, was that name. Because there's a jump scare in Yharnam, and it got me. I'm not going to lie. Even though I sort of knew something was coming, I didn't know what was coming. You see the item glowing, and you see the stagecoach, and we're going to get back to that. The stagecoach sort of shaking a little bit, and you go, oh my god, what's going to fucking happen? You go up, and you pick the item, and blah, the cramped casket jumps out at you, and it attacks. And it got me. Whatever. I'm not ashamed. I'm not ashamed to say, it's something that you would expect out of Dead Space, you know what I mean? So it jumps out and it gets you, and it's like, ah ha 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 ha. But there's something there. We can see that the cramped caskets are being carried to Yharnam in these stagecoaches, which is something that's interesting to think about. So where do we see the stagecoaches? And for starters, there's one right back in that spot with the executioner. And if you notice, actually, this is something that I didn't realize until, future playthroughs. I didn't realize this on my first playthrough, but the executioners are wearing the Yharnam hunter armor. It's just like an oversized version of it. They have the same like metal hood, metal like mask with the hood, and the same like black chain outfit and that sort of thing. It's the same armor as the the normal sized Yharnam hunters, and I have hunters in air quotes because the Yharnam hunter attire reminds us, the description of it reminds us that they are hunters in name only. So they are not at all affiliated with the workshop or with the Healing Church hunters. They are hunters in name only, meaning they're servants of the School of Mensis. And we also know that the stagecoaches were being driven by these Yharnam hunters, because we actually get the Yharnam hunter attire from the corpse of someone who was driving one of these stagecoaches. He's located in an area near where you fight the One Reborn, and he's on the stagecoach. It's a corpse, and you can loot the Yharnam hunter attire from there. So now we have a couple of interesting links, which is clearly these caskets were being brought to Yharnam by the Yharnam hunters. For what purpose? Well, let's take a look. So there's another place where we can find the executioners. We find the executioners in, and I could be wrong about this, I don't know off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure we find the executioners in 3 places. Guarding Yharnam, there's that one in the beginning of Central Yharnam, and we find them in Hemwick. And Hemwick is a place that people have asked me about, because it's sort of, a weird sort of like witchy, creepy place that doesn't really fit into the Yharnam. You go there and there's the witches, and it's sort of an odd place. So, but what's really going on there? And in Yharnam, what we see evidence of is body harvesting, is people chopping up corpses. There are graves being dug up. There are bodies in torture devices. There are guillotines where they slice down and you pick up the bloodshot eyeballs. And the bloodshot eyeballs from corpses and that sort of thing. And you see that the Healing Church is harvesting these body parts for use in rituals. And you go, ooh, that's spooky and spooky and spooky. And you keep fighting, and you get to the Witch of Hemwick. Or the Witches of Hemwick, rather. Probably one of my least favorite boss fights in the game, but that's just me. I find the mechanics of it really boring. But, that's an aside. And the Witch of Hemwick is what we learn from the Future Press Guide, an eye collector. Eye collectors are those women that we find those old women we find in Yharnam, who, ambush you, and they grab the thing around your face, and they're screaming, that thing where it's another one of those jump scares in Yharnam where you're walking down the alleyway and the the one figure sort of jumps over that way, and you peek your head out, and then from behind you get grabbed, and it's another sort of jump scare sort of thing. And but they're called eye collectors, and it fits. You get eyeballs from the Witch of Hemwick. They're literally covered in eyeballs if you look at their models, and so we can get this sort of very clear figure. And there's also stagecoaches running in and out of Hemwick. That's where we get the stagecoach to go to Canehurst, is from Hemwick. So now we have this sort of strange link between all these caskets moving towards Yharnam, which is, it appears to be that people are leaving their dead in the streets to be picked up by the healing church. Who knows? It's unclear, and they probably don't realize what's actually happening to them. They probably believe that they're being sent for burial, and I think that this is a sort of I don't think that the population is aware of this because of what the crowfeather garb that you can get from Eileen's badge tells us, which is that I'm paraphrasing here, but it tells us that the hunters of hunters want to see their dead return to the sky in the hunter's dream instead of a blasphemous Yharnam burial service. And that's what leads me to believe that the population of Yharnam is unaware of what's really going on, because they believe that the church comes to pick up the dead, bring out your dead and that sort of thing. The church comes to pick up the caskets and brings them to Hemwick, possibly for burial. But then when we get to Hemwick, we see that these corpses are being chopped up and cramped into caskets. Cramped casket. And there's more than one dead body in the cramped casket. It looks like a bunch of parts. It looks like 100 corpses have just been sort of stuffed in there. And then driven to Yharnam, where they are used in experiments. And the One Reborn is a perfect example of this experiment. It drops the yellow backbones, which tells us, what manner of gruesome ritual was this intended for. The healing church is quite literally taking the dead of Yharnam and using them for experimentation. And one quick note is, you don't see any small caskets anywhere, do you? And any like child-sized caskets. Well, you do. And this is something I referenced in the Pale Blood Hunt, but there is a place where you do find child caskets, and that's in Upper Cathedral Ward, where the choir did their research. And that does lead me to believe that the orphanage, and this is not a big reveal, but the orphanage was a place where they experimented on children, and even the corpses of children. So that's something to think about. And that's really all I have to say on the topic in particular. I hope you enjoyed just this sort of short discussion on one aspect of the lore. If you guys like this, and you'd like to see more of this, leave a comment telling me what you'd like me to go over, tiny things, because there's 1,000 things I could have gone over. And if people really like this, and if people actually want to go over other tiny little details, maybe I'll do like one a week, one of these short videos a week, and just go over something very simple. And for the record, this is all open into interpretation. Don't take all this as fact and yada 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 and that sort of thing. But I hope you, whoever you are, I hope you enjoyed watching this. So leave a comment below if you'd like me to go over anything else, or if you'd like me to shut up and never make another one of these videos. Leave another comment below and tell me that. But thank you very much for watching.